All right, picture this. You're riding through a totally desolate forest, late at night. The moon is out, the road's empty, and you're with your two best friends. Sounds like a great night, right? Well, for these guys, it was the start of an absolute nightmare. A story that begins with three friends, but ends in a way no one could ever see coming.
And it all kicked off with this one simple line. "Hey bro, pull the bike over." One of the friends, Suresh, just needed to take a quick break. So the narrator, who's driving, pulls over. A totally normal, everyday moment you wouldn't think twice about.
But that one simple stop, man, they had no idea what they were getting into. That single decision set off a chain reaction that would cost two of them their lives and throw the third into a desperate battle against something ancient and very, very angry.
Just look how fast this all went down. At 10 p.m., everything's fine. Three buddies on a bike. 5 minutes later, 10:05, they've stopped. The narrator and Suresh are on one side of the road, and their friend Ajay goes to the other. And then at 10:10, just 5 minutes later, they look back, and Ajay is just gone.
So what's their first reaction? They're just annoyed. They start shouting his name, thinking he's got to be pulling a prank, hiding in the bushes to jump out and scare them. The narrator's even like, "All right, I'm counting to 10, and then we're leaving you here." But there's just silence, nothing.
And then a scream. A scream that just rips through the quiet forest. It's Ajay. And the sound of his voice, it's pure terror. This is not a joke. It's a real, desperate cry for help. He screams again, begging for something, anything, to let him go.
Okay, so they don't even hesitate. They bolt into the woods, running towards the sound. And what they find? It's awful. There's fresh blood on the ground, splattered everywhere. You can see these clear drag marks, like he was taken by force. And this horrible trail leads them deeper and deeper into the woods until it just stops, right in front of this creepy, old, falling-apart mansion, a kothi, just sitting there in the middle of nowhere.
And this is where things get complicated. The narrator is all about loyalty. He's like, he's our friend. We can't just leave him in there. But Suresh, he is absolutely terrified. He's convinced they're up against a witch, a Diane, and that their only move is to get out of there and save themselves.
You can't really blame Suresh, though. This kothi isn't just an old house. It feels wrong. It's huge, covered in vines, and just radiates this feeling of dread. The second they push the heavy door open, a whole swarm of bats flies out at them. Yeah, not exactly a welcoming sign.
The inside is exactly what you'd expect from a horror movie. Total decay. Dust everywhere, massive cobwebs, furniture rotting away. But it's what they see next that just freezes them in place. Coming down the main staircase is a steady drip, drip, drip of fresh blood.
Suresh is begging him to leave, but the narrator just has to know. He sprints up the stairs, and at the top of the corridor, he finds him. It's Ajay. His body is hanging upside down from the ceiling, mutilated, and his head is gone.
But here's where things get really weird. Like, reality is broken weird. As they're standing there, just staring in horror at Ajay's headless body, they hear his voice. It's a whisper, but it's clear as day, coming from a dark room down the hall. How is that even possible?
They creep towards the room, and inside, they see a woman in a sari sitting in a corner with her back to them. The narrator calls out, and she slowly turns around. And she has no head. She's headless, and cradled in her hands is Ajay's severed head. And it's from that head that Ajay's voice is coming.
And then she does something so unbelievably grotesque. The headless woman takes Ajay's head, places it onto her own neck, and with a few sickening cracks, it attaches. And then Ajay's face twists into this awful, nightmarish smile.
That's it. They're done. They turn and they just run for their lives trying to get away from this thing wearing their friend's face.
But the horror isn't over. The narrator realizes he's running alone. He looks back, and Suresh has just stopped. He's standing there, completely still. Then, like a robot, he turns and starts walking back to the mansion. And up in the window, the ghost is watching him. She's got him under her spell. The narrator is helpless. He can only watch in absolute horror as Suresh walks back into that room, picks up a knife, grabs his own hair, and in one motion cuts off his own head. Another victim for the ghost. And just like that, he was the last one left.
The narrator makes a break for the door, but she's suddenly there, blocking his path. There's no way out. He is completely, totally trapped, alone with the creature that just murdered his two best friends right in front of him.
And that's when the ghost, still wearing Ajay's head, speaks. She gives him an ultimatum, a chilling choice. Bring me my head, or I will take yours. His only shot at survival is to somehow solve the mystery of her own murder.
So, the ghost tells him her story. It's tragic, really. She and her husband were here on vacation when 3 drunk men broke in. They killed her husband when he tried to stop them, and then one of them, in a drunken rage, cut off her head. They buried her body, but took her head with them. Her spirit can't rest until she's whole again.
So the story doesn't give him a lot to work with. He's desperate. He asks her, "What was the last thing you heard?" And her answer is so random she heard the men talking about frying and eating fish. That's it. That's the only clue he has.
Under all this pressure, his mind is just racing. Okay, follow the logic here. The ghost said her husband had just come back from fishing. He only caught 1 fish. Well, 1 fish isn't going to feed 3 grown men. So they probably went to the pond behind the mansion to catch more. And if you're a killer on your way to a pond, what's the easiest way to get rid of a severed head? You just toss it in the water.
With this crazy long shot of a theory, he runs to the pond. And for 2 straight hours, he dives into the freezing, filthy water, feeling around in the mud and the sludge, knowing his life literally depends on this hunch being right.
And, believe it or not, he finds it. His hands close around something hard, stuck in the mud at the bottom. A human skull. He pulls it out, takes it over to the banyan tree where she said she was buried, and digs up her skeleton. He places the skull with the rest of her bones and sets them on fire. And as the flames grow, he watches her spirit rise and finally find peace.
So, the narrator made it out alive, but he lost everything else. His friends, his peace of mind, probably his whole sense of reality. And it leaves you with this chilling question. When you've survived a night that completely defies logic, how do you ever go back to the real world? How do you even begin to explain something that you know